Our speakers are Nonkosi Xaba from the Desmond Tutu Health Foundation, and Zara will be presenting on exploring transgender and gender diverse peer support as community-based psychosocial care in South Africa.
Thanks so much. Without wasting any time, let me jump into it. As I've been introduced, my name is Zara. I am a postgraduate at Desmond Tutu Health Foundation under the LGBT Health Division. This is a postgraduate research fellowship, and it's based in Observatory, Cape Town. Moving on to the next slide. Some quick background, as Prof. Marcus gave us in the beginning, there has definitely been an evolution in gender-affirming care, as seen in the recent updates in the standards of care by the World Professional Association for Transgender Health. Although typically tethered to HIV-related work, a multidisciplinary approach to providing care has been explored, with studies showing that peer support programs are an effective way to providing emotional, informational, trauma-informed support to help trans and gender diverse communities experiencing minority stress. The study that I am undertaking would not have been possible without the unique support and advocacy group called Queer and Active. Queer and Active is a trans and gender diverse support and advocacy group supported by the LGBTI Health Division of Desmond Tutu Health Foundation. The group aims to empower trans and gender diverse individuals through building self-confidence and leadership skills, addressing the high levels of discrimination and lack of access to healthcare in South Africa. The group has monthly meeting at Grooteskiel Hospital in Observatory, Cape Town. They have an elected executive and office bearers for meeting planning and events. This year, they hosted their first in-community sexual orientation and gender identity sensitization workshop in a township in Cape Town called Kwalang. The aim of my study was to identify the key needs and activities of a trans and gender diverse peer support and advocacy group in South Africa. The objectives spoke to describing the past experiences in the broader LGBT community, describing the health and psychosocial needs, as well as the key focus areas for such a group. Jumping into the methodology. So this was a cross-sectional study with convenient sampling from a trans and gender diverse group, Queer and Active. People had to be 18 and over, self-identified as trans or gender diverse, and have to have been a member of Queer and Active and attended at least 3 meetings, right? The Queer and Active group was provided with information about the study and invited to participate also in their WhatsApp group. The study has 2 phases. Phase 1 has been completed, which involved one-on-one interviews with Queer and Active members. Phase 2 will be a focus group discussion. Data is collected using audio recordings with consent, obviously. Audio recordings are then transcribed. For analyzing this work, I chose to use the sense-making theory, and specifically because of the intersectional work and way I want to look at the way that this group is formulating and coming together. Sense-making theory is rooted in identity construction and acknowledges that identity construction is interpersonal and a co-creation process between the individual and the community. So here are some of the stats around the participants that I've had thus far in the study. There were 3 non-binary, 2 trans women, and 3 trans men between the ages of 20 and 55 plus, all residing in and around Cape Town and part of the Queer and Active group. This was not the only group that they were part of, but it was the only group that did peer support with an advocacy lens to it as well. So some preliminary results. Some preliminary results in the study that fell under broad themes, specifically difficult spaces, safe spaces, and advocacy. With difficult spaces, we looked at the lack of inclusion, recognition, and understanding of trans identities within broader LGBT spaces. In safe spaces, conversations around queer and active as a trans and gender diverse space felt like a place that was not only a place to be affirmed, but a place to teach and learn. We also covered, from our conversation, what came up was talks around advocacy and how activism is what brings the group together. Getting into difficult spaces. In discussion with participants, they shared that since joining the space, they had a SOGI workshop. A SOGI is a sexual orientation and gender identity sensitization workshop, which taught them about their own gender identity and sexual orientations. These conversations helped them understand how themselves were not truly understood in the broader LGBT community and how they were fetishized as well. Anna, I care about you so much. How do I get you off my screen? Okay, here we go. So a quote here says, okay, there's a superiority. There are identities that are deemed superior and identities that are deemed inferior within the LGBT movement. Gay and lesbian is, the prominent identities that people know. And people feel like those are the identities that represent LGBT community. So, the T is still neglected. People are ignorant. Someone went also to speak around the community is discriminatory, like literally. People would put up ads like no fats, no femmes, no sissy boys, no lady boys. That's derogatory. A lot of people view that as a preference. Preferences can be problematic because preferences come from a place of stigma, a place of hate. This is discussing a lack of understanding, stigma, and the fetishization of trans and gender diverse bodies. Someone also speaks about experiencing social anxiety whenever entering social spaces, non-queer social spaces, queer exclusive social spaces. Because whenever I hear someone say he or him, my heart would have an anxiety attack. Like I would have heart palpitations. When probed further on why, they said it felt wrong. It felt like that's not me. Someone also elaborated on the fetishization of trans body, sharing about how people in the community have said, as the guys will say, T stands for toy. Safe spaces. Participants also shared why it was important for them to attend these meetings. Accessing queer and active was not only to socialize, but also to get information on referrals to employment or the employment network opportunities, referrals to medical pathways. Q&A is also in a unique position with its relationship with Desmond Tutu as the access referral pathways to gender affirming care. They also come together to mobilize for advocacy events. So someone said when describing their experience in safe spaces, I feel as though it's important for us together. We need to reach out to the next generation together. Someone else also shared, we need, since trans people most of them are seeking employment, to focus on employment and stuff, So they also share about how a member in their group who's also an office bearer and an executive shares information on employment opportunities available in and around the city. And that's also one of the reasons that they keep coming back and they feel as though should be a focal point. When asked about the perceived benefits of belonging to a group like Queer and Active, someone shared having access to the legal stuff, the letters and stuff, because actually even now I'm waiting for someone to write me one. They were alluding to waiting for a letter from a mental health care provider to affirm that they can go on and change their identity marker. The person also goes on to share their experience about coming into Queer and Active. I became so much more comfortable about being a woman that I could take my inner child out and just not care about looking too feminine because it just everything didn't matter anymore because at first everything mattered. And I'm comfortable being in queer spaces because I know exactly who I am. I found that there was a need for the teasing out further of what psychosocial support looked like for the people at Queer and Active. When probed and asked about their experience with psychosocial support, it always came back to how psychosocial support to them was very much tied in with advocacy, visibility. And this was a key focus areas. Participants shared how psychosocial support to them was primarily linked with being understood through advocating, education, advocating for access, and being visible in their community. So when asked about accessing mental health support in broader LGBT community, someone shared that psychosocial support was not a focal point. Advocacy was a focal point. Visibility was a focal point, not necessarily psychosocial support. When asked what were important focus areas for them as the group Queer and Active, they said visibility. We need to be out there. We need to be seen. We need to be felt. We need to be heard. Visibility with education. Yeah, sexual orientation and gender identity, sexual orientation education. And I would say skills advancement, talking more about wanting to be the people who also provide these trainings in their community. When when asked how they would tackle being invisible, they started to speak more about we could do more work with social media, especially with strategies, doing more films to document, archive, document the experiences, make this a thing. I was really inspired after that conversation. This is how far I've come with my study, and this is where I'll leave it now. I'm looking forward to my focus group discussion. And if there are any questions, I'm happy to answer. Thank you.